Paula, is it really loud or something? You're muted.
Yes, it was really loud. I was just trying to fix mine.
Yeah, mine seems really loud too, but I don't want to yell at people.
I can't hear it. I feel it too loud.
Okay. So based on the survey results, looks like everybody's comfort level is getting a little more, the numbers are reflecting better as we go through all of these. I know that the homework assignment stumped a few of you with the purchase anything that is needed to be purchased by 8/12. So I talked to some of you individually and just said, if your dates don't work for that, everything was after that, to go ahead and purchase something and link it to your project ID. So that's where we're seeing probably the most, the step that's being forgotten. So what I want you guys to be aware of is there is a dashboard, and I'm going to share my screen. And if you are in, excuse me, material management, purchase management, general operations, there's this dashboard down here called POs not linked to a project by site/branch. What I want you guys to do right now is to find this item on your menu. And when you launch this dashboard, the search criteria is by supplier ID or order date. You can leave those blank and just click the refresh button. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to, I want you guys to do it. So once you access this dashboard and pull it up, click on this refresh button and see what you see. Does everybody have, excuse me, sorry, you guys are going to have to pardon my clearing my throat constantly. All right, so I am actually going to go ahead and pull this up. So what this shows is any purchase orders that have been created. So basically you've gone into new PO suggestions and you've clicked your buy button and filled in whatever the required criteria is, gone to actions and said, generate purchase orders. However, once you do that, you've got to go into the purchase order itself to be able to link it to the project ID. So some of these obviously aren't from our sessions, but when you were, in the instructions in the homework, it said to look at your project tracker, and you should see a lot more stuff there. If you look at your project tracker and you don't have your POs linked, but you know that you went through the process of creating those POs, then you need to come to this dashboard and you can see the parts that are there and which ones need to be linked to the appropriate project ID. So if you're...
Lori, can you show me how you got there again?
So it's in purchase management, general operations. It's called POs not linked to a project. Tracy, I'm not sure where you're dialing in from or anything. Sounds like you're in a wind tunnel. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear me when I was saying where it is.
That's because my fan is right next to my iPad.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. I just want to make sure you could still hear me. So yeah, so it's this PO is not linked to a project. And when you pull it up, you can just click on the refresh button and it'll show all the purchase orders that have been issued or been created, but they're not linked to a specific project. So one thing that I want you guys to be aware of also is, right now I had said, we still have some cleaning up to do, and in the quote process itself, when you guys start a quote, no matter, which location you're in, Amy is the lucky individual whose name gets tied to those. So if I was to come in here and go into a new quote, if I go file new quote, in the buyer ID, Amy's name is always going to be the one that defaults until we get this fixed. So you need to also make sure that you find your name in there. Because if you don't change this as you go through the process and you create your parts and you win your quote, that buyer ID, in this case Amy, is going to be tied to that part. And I say that because if you go into, PO suggestions after it's been generated and you pull it up by your name, you might not find anything because you started off with the wrong name in here as the buyer. Does that make sense? Sorry. I haven't talked this.
Sorry. I have
go
a
ahead.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I could have swore that I put the project ID number on my POs, but they show up in here.
Okay. So another thing you can do when you're in this PO's not linked, next to the PO number, you can right click and say open with PO entry. So one thing also is, yes, you can put the project ID here at the summary tab, but it also needs to be on the release tab. So there's two places to put the project ID. So just because you put it here doesn't mean it's going to get to your release tab. Another
Where
thing
is it on the release tab? Where did you?
if you're at your summary and you click on the releases
Yeah.
down here at the bottom right hand side,
Project.
Yeah, I like to put it in here as well, just so I can see it when I first pull up my purchase order. But in order for it to get attached to your project, it has to be on the releases tab.
Do you have to add new or something? Because it won't let me. It's not a fillable item.
Okay, so that was what I was going to get to next. The other thing about, remember, I know there's a lot of check boxes in all of these different applications. When you pull up your purchase order, this approved box is probably checked. And in order to make any changes to the purchase order, that approved box is kind of like a lockbox. It's basically saying this purchase order is good, it was approved, it's ready to be sent to your supplier. However, if you need to make any kind of changes to it, you have to unapprove it to make those changes. And then once you've made those changes, you'll click the approved again. and save it. I'm going to close out of this. So I want you guys, if you're looking at this dashboard and you see anything that you know should be attached to your project, I want you to go ahead and, right click next to the PO, open with purchase order entry, and attach your project to the summary as well as the releases tab.
I have a question.
Sure.
If as like, let's say a buyer is out on vacation and we go in as like an OM, we go in and check this to see if something's in here. Are we able to update other buyers' information if if I have other people in the office?
Yeah, so this was a while back when we talked about this, but the reason why in the quote entry that you have all the different buyers or all the different ACs in your office is because if you're doing something on behalf of them, you want to put their name on it. So therefore, it will follow through and the parts and everything will get created with their name attached to it. You just have to remember that, if you're looking at suggestions or something and you're covering for someone else, you would want to put their buyer name to see what's in there versus your buyer name. Just because you're doing the action doesn't tie you to that part.
I have another question. I'm having a difficult time finding the project ID because you can only search by a number or a project ID number.
So when you,
customer.
right. So when you can always find your project ID on your quote and or your sales order. So the sales order and the quote are searchable by the customer. So once the quote has been won, the project ID is assigned there, and you can find the project ID number there.
On quotes,
Quotes and sales orders.
sales.
Lori,
Mm-hmm.
so this list, the PO's not linked to a project.
Mm-hmm.
If it's in summary but not in release, it'll show up here. Because both my project on 3 of my perks was in summary, just not on release.
Right. So exactly. It will show up here if you haven't tied the release to the project.
So it's got to be on both.
Right. Actually, it doesn't have to be on the summary. That's just my preference. But it doesn't have to be on the summary, but it has to be on the release to get it tied to the project.
Okay.
Like I said, I just like to have it on the summary just because when I open up that PO, I can see it right there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So in the homework assignment about attaching or linking your project to your purchase order, and just so you guys know, when we assign the homework this afternoon for this, this rest of this week, it's going to be basically the same thing that we did this last week. However, I'm not going to put any dates as far as purchasing goes, except for you can purchase anything that's needed to be bought by in the month of August. I was about to say October, sorry. I'm wishing it was October. So in the month of August. The reason why I had, had put that date out there is just because I want you guys to start, kind of relying on the system and how it works. Oh, stop it. I've been shut out of Epicor like 3 times today, so We're just hoping for not a repeat. Okay, hold on. Here we go again. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment to see if this will help. Okay. But really the reason why I'd said something about the dates was just so that, you know, you guys kind of start looking for what the system's telling you as far as an order by date. I realized that, you know, kind of obviously caused some confusion, and some of your parts were not, you know, within that date criteria. So again, this homework assignment this next time will be the same steps as, you know, as we've done before, but you won't be in that short date range as far as buying something. So was everyone able to find their POs if they were in that dashboard and link them to their project?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so let me try this again and see if we're back up.
So Laura, let's ask a question. If they're on that spreadsheet, but you don't remember what project they go to, what's the easiest way to figure that out?
Well, I would probably look at my project tracker and go to my orders, because that's going to have the part numbers. Your sales orders are going to have the same part numbers that your purchase orders have on them.
Okay.
So, and you know, you can also pull up more than one project at a time and kind of arrow through them to see what you're looking at.
Got it.
All right, so since I'm not able to do anything in the system, I'm going to talk you guys through. So if you were able to attach your project ID to your purchase orders, I want you to go into Project Tracker now and refresh and make sure that you now see your quotes. So you should have sales orders, you should have purchase orders, and you should have your quote all attached to your project.
Lori, are we able to, like, if the POs come up in that dashboard, the PO is not linked to a project, say I don't need those two anymore. They don't go to my project. I made a mistake on them, so I just redid new ones. Is there a way to delete those permanently, or they'll always be there?
If they, no, you can delete a purchase order. You would have to go to the line and delete it off of the line before you can delete the whole purchase order.
Okay, thank you.
And obviously you'd have to unapprove it to make those changes.
I have a question. Can you just talk about the lead time and the date part, the portion again? Like, what's the expiration again for the system?
So,
yeah, if you could just reiterate that part one more time.
yeah, so Jen, was it yours that we were having the issue with the lead times not matching up?
No,
So,
remember
okay.
I think something with the PO suggestions. You never mentioned anything about the date. I think I set my dates correct, but I just want to go over the lead time. Like, what's the system picking up on? I know there's like a 3-month window. I think that's what it is.
Well, so the system basically, when you're in your quote, and you know, you put your lead time on that manufacturing tab, the lead time from the supplier. When that part gets created, that lead time gets referenced on that part. So when PO suggestions runs, it looks at what your need by and ship by date is on your sales order. and how long it takes to produce that part. And it calculates in there when you need to buy it. When, let me flip to,
I on my homework I made my dates really short because I saw yours, so I don't think I had an issue with that part. But I guess
okay.
my concern is I'm trying to prepare mentally with the office and try to start working on getting everyone's mindset on lead times, and I'm trying to figure out how to lay that out so everyone understands, kind of.
Okay, yeah, so basically when POs, when we do the generating of the purchase order, so when we go through this generate purchase suggestions, so there is this cutoff date. So if I was to put a cutoff date of, let's say September 1st, and I ran this, the system's only going to look at anything that meets the criteria of needing to be ordered by September 1st and prior. When this is set up systematically, we won't have a cutoff date in there. So what that means is it's going to run it for, well, let me rephrase that. Right now, we're not talking about having a cutoff date. We might, I don't know, but that decision hasn't been made. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at anything and everything that's out there that you will need to buy based on your sales orders. So what my suggestion is that when you look at purchase order suggestion entry, and if I look at mine, I can see my order by date for this one is 8/21. For the next one, it's 8/20. So if I wanted to wait for another, week, I could totally do that. These will stay in here until I actually generate the purchase orders. Now you could also instruct your ACs when they do this search. There is a cutoff date here, so I could put this, and if I said by 18th, then this is what I'm going to have, and I know that those are not mine because I know what those are, and they're also really old. So you can search by a cutoff date, but if you don't, these suggestions are going to stay in here until they're satisfied, until they're actually either bought or the demand has changed for them, meaning this you've made a change on your sales order.
Okay, so that due date is when the customer wants it, and the order by date would be when the source can ship it.
So I need to order this by 8/20 to get it to me by 8/26. And then
I guess I'm trying to think where, when we get stuff from our sales agents, that order by date, what is that date? Like where are we getting it? Because they're obviously giving us the due date, like from when does it need to be the customer? That's the date we get from the sales agent. So I'm trying to figure out how to relay to them that we need to know how long it takes your supplier. I guess that would be the last date from the supplier.
Right. So basically you need to know how many days does your supplier say it's going to take to make this material.
Okay.
And then, and when your customer needs it. So in my sales order,
due date is customer, order date is more supplier. Kind of.
So like, let's look at this. So this was my sales order. I need to ship this to get it to my customer on the 28th. I need to ship it by the 26th. So when I look at my suggestions, it's telling me I need to buy it by the 20th in order to ship it on the 26th to my customer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
In relation to this, what we're talking about right now, will we be notified by Coupa on 8/20 that we need to make this order, or will it be like a week ahead?
it's not going to quote unquote notify you. The suggestion's going to stay in here until you actually buy it. So if you look at this on 8/19, I would say go ahead and buy it. You're only a day early.
Okay, so we'll see, we'll have like it'll almost be like a spreadsheet per se of what we need to order, and it'll stay there until we order.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I had said, you know, in the homework, had said, you know, if the order by date is 8/12 or prior, to go ahead. I really just wanted you guys to start paying attention to that date because, you know, again, the way that the commissions model works, when that material is received into a warehouse, that's when the clock starts ticking as far as inventory expirations. And I'm going to talk more about the receiving thing when we do that in just a few minutes. But so obviously, if this had an order by date wasn't until October or November, I certainly don't want to bring that in early and then have my sales agent end up getting hit with that cost of that material because it had expired for how long it had been on the floor. These are all great questions. I'm going to go ahead and create these purchase orders because this is going to help me with helping you. Okay. So I just created my purchase orders, and I'm going to go into purchase order entry. And I'm going to search for them. And I'm going to say okay. So, like to Lynn's point and some other people who had reached out as far as, following procedures and that kind of thing. So, attaching the project ID is actually, you are modifying this purchase order. So, you would want to follow the steps on PO.3 that say either, I think it's like create manual PO or modify existing PO. And there's a lot of different things that you could do to modify this purchase order. But anytime that you are unchecking this approved button, you're modifying it. You're making a change. So I'm going to attach my project ID to my summary. And then I'm also going to, now I have 2 lines on this purchase order, so I need to make sure that I put it on both releases. I'm going to move to the next line and put it on there. And I'm going to save this. And now those are the only changes that I needed to make on here, so I can go back and I can hit this is approved. And I'm going to go to my next one. I'm going to make a change, so I've got to unlock it by unapproving it. Putting my purchase ID on here and on here. Go back to my summary and approve it again. So another thing is if I was to unapprove these, attach my project ID and hit save and I'm not approving it again, it's not going to show up in my project tracker. Even though the action's been done, it's not in an approved state. So the system thinks, oh, there's still more changes to be done here. I'm not gonna send it to that project tracker right now. All right, so if I wanted to actually look at my project tracker, I'm going to right click here and say open with project tracker. And now I have my sales order, my purchase orders, and my quote that I started with. And I'm in the wrong side. Well, that's lovely. All right. So, let me just look at something real quick. Okay. What had happened earlier was I was trying to look at everybody's projects and I was in a different site. And so it ended up attaching my project to that site. So let me see. Okay, I can't make that change. Maybe. Yeah. All right. Disregard all that. You can just watch me click away. All right. So what we want to do is go into receipt entry. So now that you have your purchase orders, they're linked to your project. We want to go in and it's going to be in your main menu, material management, shipping and receiving, and general operations, and go down to receipt entry. So one thing about receiving that I didn't really talk about too terribly much. So in today's world, when editing gets an invoice from your supplier for materials, and they're matching up, the price, and they're looking at the order. And let's say that, your order was for 1,000 boxes and you ended up getting 1,100. And you took that 1,100